Hello, Rampver Financials friends. This is again Rex Mendoza. About a month ago, we shared the recording of Mr. Bobby D's plans for Ayala Land. That was well received. A lot of you gave us great feedback on that video when he was a guest at TRC Platinum, and we shared this with everyone, courtesy of the kindness of Brother Bo Sanchez. In that video, if you remember, Bobby mentioned a certain gentleman that he gives a lot of credit to in terms of mentorship, in terms of guidance. And that person is no other than Mr. Antonino T. Aquino. Ata for many people in Ayala Land, Tony for a lot of friends and business acquaintances. I also had a lot of awe and respect for that man. So I thought, why don't I ask him if he's going to be willing to talk to me in a recorded Zoom meeting that I can share with all of you? And we can talk about leadership. We can talk about, his principles, how he has grown the companies that he has been part of. And I felt, this is going to be a big thing because Tony is not your type of leader who goes to TV talk shows, who gets to the limelight, puts a lot of press releases out there. That's not the guy. This guy is probably not so well known publicly, but in the corporate world, he's such a legend. He's such an idol. So I thought I can invite that gentleman and share him with you. True enough, one email. And just like that, much like Bobby, he said yes. And that's the reason why in these two videos, I have to cut it in two. So sorry for that because I got carried away. I practically didn't notice the time. But you see, no matter how long this conversation was, it was rich with a lot of nuggets of wisdom. And that's why I am so proud to be able to share this with you. Tony Aquino, President and CEO of Ayala Property Management Corporation, APMC, from 1989 to 1999. President and CEO of Manila Water Company from 1999 to 2009. And President and CEO of Ayala Land from 2009 to 2014. That's really very important for me to say those dates because if you noticed, he started in those organizations at a time of crisis. And that's the reason why it's so relevant today. He was able to turn things around for those companies. Ayala Property Management Corporation as a big support system for Ayala Land. In fact, driving the sense of value for Ayala Land properties. Manila Water Company, one of the most successful, if not the most successful PPP in our country. And Ayala Land, of course, many of us know that company. It is the largest, most respected brand in Philippine real estate. This guy is somebody different. But instead of just introducing him as that President and CEO, I will also have to share with you that he's honorary fellow in the Institute of Corporate Directors in 2020. And on top of that, in 2009, this is big, he was awarded the Management Man of the Year. Top of the heap in a corporate world beset with a lot of great guys. But you see, there is a human side to Tony Aquino that I also want to be able to share with you. Humble beginnings from, that side of Malabon to where he is today. Much like a father to many of us. And I'll tell you, it was an honor and a privilege to work for and be mentored by this man. Bobby and I are both blessed in our careers. But you see, Rampver friends, we'd like to be part of your journey. If you remember, all the time we always say this, we like to be part of your financial, career, and life journey. And that's the reason why I thought about doing this. And I would probably be doing this for more of my mentors. I'd like to be able to share them with you. If you like this, please comment down below. Rex, please share us your other mentors. But I want you to stick to these videos and see for yourself and marvel at the career achievements, concepts, and principles of Mr. Tony Aquino. Guys, I am so proud of this, and I hope it will impact you and your journey. Let's enjoy this. Okay, as mentioned in that introduction, we're in for a treat. This is a great blessing for all of us. We have no other than the Mr. Tony Aquino. Good day, sir. It's a great time for learning for everyone. Maraming salamat po. Pinaunlakan nyo kami.
Oh, thank you for this invitation, Rex, and I'm always very happy to share with your audience whatever I might have gone through in life.
It's really quite a blessing, as I've said, kasi alam nyo naman, si Mr. Tony Aquino, if you're going to be putting it in context, no, I just want to put this in context. Alam nyo, he might not be such a public face for many of us because he has been shunning the limelight. Pero pag pumunta kayo sa business world, pag pumunta kayo sa corporate world, this is probably one of the most respected people in business. Alam nyo, sir, Management Man of the Year awardee kayo, and if you're going to be looking at that roster, kukunti dyan yung talagang purely professional. Many of them own those companies that they work for. So, dun pa lang makikita nyo how big a technocrat and a leader you are. Kaya po, blessed na blessed kami that you're able and willing to share your time with us.
Thank you so much, Rex. Thank you for that introduction.
So, sir, umpisahan na natin. Siyempre, sorry but medyo ibabatak po natin ang talagang matagal ito. I'd really want you to share us your youth, yung pagka-estudyante po, the student life of Tony Aquino. Did this leadership journey start in school? Ano ba ho ang highlights ng inyong educational background dyan sa Ateneo?
Well, let's not start with Ateneo. That's a little bit somewhere in the middle already. Let's start off from my grade school years. You see, I was the product of what you would consider to be a parochial school. This is a Maryknoll school in Malabon called St. James Academy. So truly, I can be proud to say I'm a Maryknoller.
Wow!
Because that school was really the first Maryknoll school that was established in the Philippines before the Maryknoll sisters went all the way to Manila in Pennsylvania and then eventually to Loyola Heights. So that's where I started, in Malabon. And I think to me, that was such a great opportunity because that enabled me to learn the real Filipino. The real Filipino is not obviously the one that is just in Makati. It is not the one that studies in Ateneo. I would like to think that the real Filipino, I managed to have rubbed shoulders and my elbows with in Malabon. And I think I learned a lot because of that. I understood the Filipino a lot better as a consequence.
Pero si Tony Aquino ba, sir? Ano ba yan? Very academically inclined ba? Is he an honor student o leader na siya nung kabataan pa lang niya?
Well, during those times, our class was very small. So it was probably a little easy to be able to get the nice grades, no? But I think to me, what I remember I had done at that point was I had set certain targets for myself in terms of what I'd like to have doon sa grades sa eskwela. I wanted to make sure that I would be able to set goals even for myself as early as those years. And of course, I was also fortunate that my mother, who is a public school teacher, entrusted me with managing her very limited real estate asset. She had one piece of property right there in the middle of town, and she wanted to put up an office building that she can rent out. So guess who it was? I was the project manager. Wow. I helped in terms of the construction management, And we managed to put up the building, which stands up till now. It's a small 2-story building. But you can imagine that that was the experience that I had managed to attain during that period of time.
You know, who would have ever thought, no, you've done that for your mom. Eventually, you're going to be doing it for the biggest property developer in the Philippines eventually, no? Pero bago po tayo pumunta ng Ali, let's focus on that education. When you were in the Ateneo, did you really focus on a management track? Do you know that you're going to be a manager of a corporation, or kayo ba ay nag-isip din mag-engineer or maging doktor? What was the track then?
I think management was probably what you'd consider to be the fallback option for anything. I knew I was not going to be good in the behavioral sciences, if you might call it. I did not like to study Latin and stuff like that. And nor was I a science person. So I think eventually I chose the middle of the road, so that I was figuring that I would be able to go this way or another way, depending on what the circumstances will be.
Tapos sir, nag-ano kayo eh. This is something that's very, I think, relevant today, no? You took up your MBA. Ito po ang isang one of the things that probably a lot of our young entrepreneurs and young leaders are going to be thinking of today. Will an MBA really help? Kasi po nag-iba na yung the picture of education is very different now for the current youth, no? Many of them want to, like, syempre po, sorry ang nagiging idol ngayon yung mga school dropouts na nagiging technology technology giants, no? Now, will it be relevant or will it still help? How did your MBA help you?
Well, I think ang MBA ko noon sa Ateneo din, sa Padre Faura pa at that point in time. And maybe my biggest accomplishment in MBA was that that's where I met my future wife. And that was, as classmates, nakita ko mas magaling siya sa management statistics. During those days, you used to do linear programming, the simplex method, yung manual way by which you're doing it. As compared with today, pa-plug in mo lang sa computer and you've got the answer. No? So that was where I met her. But I think insofar as the MBA is concerned, what I learned the most, what I appreciated the most, was the ability to interact with others. Some older than you, some your peers. And I think you know that you've got certain ideas that you are convinced will be the best solution for the case study being presented to you. And yet you know that within your group, there will be others who will be thinking differently. What I learned there was, how do you make sure that you're going to be able to have your idea that is the correct one to be the one that will be adopted? And this requires a lot of strategy. You have to eat a lot of humble pie. You have to be accommodating. You have to compromise until you manage to get to where you would like to be. That's what I learned the most. I think insofar as the MBA programs are concerned today, sometimes I even joke around and say that the MBA degree becomes less important one day after you graduate, because things are so different now. And in reality, everything that you learn in a theoretical space as in the MBA program is not going to be what would be most applicable to today's circumstance. You can just imagine, Rex, ano mangyayari ngayon if we applied MBA to this, what you call as COVID economy? No? Wala rin. It's not there. It is not one of the lessons or cases that are going to be studied there. At the end, it is how you think and how you're going to be able to adapt to the situation at hand.
But I guess, sir, you hit the nail on the head there. It's really more the interaction with other people, the kind of maturity that you get to put into yourself, and maybe the acknowledgement that some data will be important, but many other information will not be. It's how to sift through everything that we face and maybe select what's going to impact us the most, no? So
yes,
napaka-importante po nun. So when you get to when you finish the education, no, I just noticed your career, is too stellar when you look at the Ayala group of companies that you were part of. But before that, did you really think that your home will be an Ayala company? After your education, were you really set on specifically eyeing a good company to work for?
Of course, that was the dream of anybody who's graduating from school. And of course, during those days, you somehow tried to select where should I work. And of course, at that point in time, I decided to work with IBM. Ayala was there, but I opted to work with IBM, which at the time was a technology company. It's a multinational. It's one of the dream companies that you would consider to be. Now, of course, at that point in time, I wasn't even too sure of myself as to what is the type of job I'd like to do in IBM. And so I said, I was a little bit of an introvert. So I said, ang application ko, nilagay ko programmer. That's talagang you won't fail if you say you want to be a programmer in IBM. And then, of course, they told me, sorry, there is no opening for the job of programmer. Wala. So what is available? Marketing. That shocked me a bit because I did not consider myself to be a marketing guy. But of course, beggars cannot be choosers. Sige, marketing. and that's exactly what I got to be. I got to be a marketing representative. I fortunately managed to succeed even in that job. And I think that tells you about the importance of adapting to any situation. You cannot just choose the perfect spot. It may not be there for you. But kailangan titiyagain mo kung ano yung ibinibigay sa yung pagkakataon. And I was there for quite a long period of time. And I learned the whole slew of marketing. You know, Rex, that I would always be telling the marketing people na, alam ko yan, paggawa ng sales call, paggawa ng cold call. During those days, you would look at the yellow pages even. Hindi, ngayon, madali na eh. Mag-i-internet ka na lang and you would already know. Noon, I would really have to pound the street, literally. I would know the back streets of Marikina, Mandaluyong, Binondo, everything. Because my job was to be able to get business initially from what we call as new business marketing. So I enjoyed that thoroughly and I understood the local territory a lot better as a consequence.
Pero ang galing nun, sir. I really remember when you were joining Ayala Land way back 2009. I was the head of marketing. The entire marketing organization and sales organization was kind of reporting to me. So I was thinking, Mr. Tony Aquino from MWC, and then before that, APMC, paano kaya siya with marketing? No? How can I be able, the struggle with Ayala at that time, there was this tug-of-war between projects and marketing and sales. No? But somehow I can tell you, amazing how you know your marketing, and then for a lot of people, that was a huge surprise even for me. Pero ito, sir, I think this is what I'd really like to pound on. Many people would probably think the marketing and sales people who are good will always be extroverts, who will always be, talkative and all. Pero si Mr. Tony Aquino, silent killer. And when you open your mouth, that's it. It makes a lot of sense and it actually pushes the idea much further. So I think personality-wise, did you feel comfortable with sales and marketing at that time?
Well, I think we were always taught that you would always have to look for the hot buttons of the particular client that you have. And that particular hot button is not going to be just applicable generally. You always have to tailor fit everything you say in accordance with what the wishes of the client would be. And I think I would have always focused on that, and I always concentrated on that. And I always made sure that I would be able to pitch the right angle in every particular discussion. It's not always going to be the same for each and every client. Others would probably be more in favor of coming around with financial projections. Others will be on what's the economic justification, etc., etc. So I would always make sure that I'll be ready to direct the discussion towards what I know is very important to the client that I'm facing.
Okay, sir. Let's shift now. No, let's get on with your first president and CEO position, and that's with Ayala Property Management Corporation. For many people out there na hindi nakakakilala sa APMC, APMC is what I call it the trump card of Ayala Land. Ayala Land has always been known to create great projects, great products, buildings, subdivisions. Pero ang totoo, the reason why Ayala is very successful is because of the Ayala Property Management Corp, who make sure that the properties and the developments have value over time. So you've been a president, sir, of APMC for 10 years. Ano naman po, what are the highlights that you can share with us for this 10-year stint that you have with them, leading all of them towards providing value for Ayala Land customers?
Well, I think the first stage that I had with APMC was really my first transformation journey. Kasi, when you were with IBM as a multinational company, you know that they have a system for everything. Down to the smallest form, there's a form for everything. And that was the main reason why I decided to work with a local company. This is the Ayala Group, because I knew that you can afford to be a little bit more entrepreneurial, because Ayala is engaged in so many different aspects of the industry, and therefore it is possible for you to come up with your own style of leadership and the way you'd like to manage things. And the first order of the day for me in APMC was how to transform the organization. Because when we started out, it was really composed largely of people who were really at the front lines working on the equipment. And it was not a case of property managers as we know it today. So it involved us seeing to it that when I remember distinctly that when we started APMC, we exactly had 2 engineers. Si Engineer Casillan, whom you know, and the second engineer was the cashier. Okay? So the level of technical expertise was still lacking. The people were great below because they knew exactly how to get the equipment working. But that's not enough in today's environment. You know that you need first-class property managers as you have it today. And that's actually what I had started out with. And so today, the likes of the people that are at APMC, I'm glad, are the ones that we had hired initially during those days and are now occupying the leadership positions in APMC. So we hired a whole set of engineers, CPAs, so that they would really be the ones that will be taking care of the new APMC. So that's, I think, the first transformation journey that I've had. It was a great experience because it was transforming the organization from just being doers to being able to properly manage things according to the professional property management techniques. And I think that's the reason why it is now able to do hundreds of properties all over the country, because a system had been set and the property management skill set has been so well developed such that they are now actually what is making Ayala Land a company like what it is today.
But I guess, sir, one of the things that I think people credit you much in APMC is also the face of APMC to the customer. You were also able to transform that side so that your property managers can deal with their homeowners better, with the associations better. I think you were able to glue the relationships, no? Kasi this is where sometimes the real conflicts happen, and because it's a service function, at times, it's not only the technical side that has to up the ante, it's also the relationship side with the homeowners.
That's really what property management should be all about. And I think insofar as that side is concerned, I also made sure that even if I was a company president, I was there in the front lines together with the property manager. We will be sitting through the various homeowners associations, meetings, general assembly meetings, and you know how time-consuming that might be. Maybe it is not possible today if you are dealing with 100. But I think it was also a very important message to the property managers, to your team, that you're out there in the front lines with them, that you're not there just so that they'll be passing on only the good stuff for you to do, but to be able to be confronting and to be able to help solve the problems that are being presented to you by the homeowners. And I think that was, again, another great learning on my part, which I think had turned out so well, so that when I subsequently, even when I went to Manila Water, and even when I came from Manila Water back to Ayala Land, I found those learnings extremely important. And I loved it, that I would be able to do it that way. And it also gives a nice feeling to your team that, okay, this guy is not just there for the good stuff. He's there to be in the front lines with us and to be able to help in terms of turning things towards our organization's objectives.
It's great, sir, because at that time, you were really given that milestone or that credit for that legacy to make sure that APMC was giving value. So it's not just the product, it's not just the buildings or even the malls. It's how APMC has made things work on a day-to-day basis, no? That makes it even more valuable. So as
And,
you
and,
mentioned,
and also to be able to make sure that it will really be on a roll from that point on. Because today, the APMCIC is definitely far better than what we had started. So I think I really enjoyed watching these developments happen, that the organization that you might have started at this level even manages to keep improving for the better. And so today, I think it's undisputably the leader insofar as the field is concerned.
I will inject this to our discussion, sir, because this is very important. When I go through this line, I always remember Tony Aquino. They always say this, very important to remember. Leaders are not simply people who make organizations perform during their time. The true and genuine leaders are leaders who actually leave a team that will continuously perform and will even perform better. So yung mga iniwan ni Tony Aquino mga companies, they actually flew after you even left, no? So you've developed leaders there, and that's, I guess, one of the most important facets of it, that you're not just a good leader, but you were also able to develop other leaders after you.
Actually, the secret, I think, on that part, Rex, is that, okay, the leader's objective is, of course, to set the goals, okay? But more importantly, is for you to be able to put in place the right corporate culture. Because I think, as we were explaining in this case of APMC, to transform it from the people who were doing things on the ground to being a real property managed company entailed transformation of the whole organization to a new organization with a different set of culture. So I think that is always a key element that is important in the transformation journey. Because if you're just going to be setting objectives and people are just going to keep doing it that way, right after you're gone, it stops. So it's always important that you manage to put together a corporate culture, in some way, the constitution, if you might call it, so that the way things are done will continue to be done that way.
Okay, sir. So as you said, no, from APMC, you journeyed into MWC. By far, up till today, one of the most successful PPPs ever, public-private partnerships. And I think one of the biggest monumental moves you made at that time is the fact that you almost have a quasi-government team that you made into a top-notch, well-oiled, privately run corporation. So how would you envision this during that transition? What were the things you started with?
Well, let's start off even before that, Rex, as to why maybe Fernando and Jaime decided that I should be assigned to Manila Water. And the secret is really the fact that at that time, APMC was in charge of the water system in Ayala, Alabang. You remember at that time,
Yes.
Ayala, Alabang did not have an MWSS or Manila taking care of its requirements. We in APMC were in charge. So it was a case where probably they figured that even if it was only 5,000 clients in Alabang at that point in time, and you know that you have to deal with eventually 5 million residents in the east zone of Metro Manila, that's really where I say, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed is king. Okay, we knew a little bit about water at that point in time, so that helped me. And it also helped me a lot that I had a good mentor, as in June Berba, who helped me in terms of smoothing out my edges, so that when he retired shortly after I came in, then I was the one that was chosen to be the president of Manila Water. And at that point in time, Manila Water, when June and I were starting off, had serious problems involving water supply. You know, you did not have 24/7 water supply. Only 24% had 24/7 water supply. 2/3 of the water was getting lost by leaks, illegal connections, everything. So you would have figured that, hey, there must be something wrong here with the people who are running the organization. But what we decided to do was to make use precisely of the same former public sector employees to be the battering ram to try to solve all of these problems. So it entailed a huge developmental effort. It tells you that former public sector employees were really good. Sometimes they just miss out as a result of, the series, the decades of leaders that might have come before them. And maybe even if you happen to have a good leader at a certain point in time, their hands are shackled by all of the regulations on COA and all of Civil Service Commission and stuff like that. So in the end, you have good people, but we're inside a system that was difficult to be able to progress on. So that's what we really just made use of. We just made use of the same people. We just made use of just setting high goals for them. Again, I like to set high goals for these people. And the goals that we set at the time was, okay, yung 2/3 of water getting lost, that we call non-revenue water system loss, let's try to bring that down to zero. Okay? To zero. I mean, it's impossible. Okay? You and I know it's impossible. Okay? Today, after all the effort, it has improved significantly. But this was a case where you had to set those BHAGs. Okay? The 2/3 of the water that was being lost was largely because of what you call as non-collection of receivables. Part of it, non-revenue water eh. So, ibig sabihin, hindi nababayaran. So again, I said, I want 100% collection efficiency. So we set very high goals for the team. And then we decentralized the organization into 200 territory teams. So it was a case where every barangay has a territory manager. And the territory manager at that time was a former MWSS person or a fresh college graduate, because we had put in a lot of new people along the way as we were hiring them. So the 200 territory managers in turn were fully empowered. You would have said that, why are you going to be so trusting when maybe some of them were the cause of the problems of the high NRW at that point in time? But I think that is where you have to trust. You have to develop and you have to empower. And I'd probably say we were 99% correct. You would have maybe 4 or 5 that went astray. But the value of the guys that managed to have done so well far outweighed whatever the 4 or 5 guys who were not doing so well. You could just forget about whatever they might have lost. But immense was the amount of value that the other 200 guys had managed to do. So to me, it was always a case of how you decentralize, how you develop people. And I think somehow that also encourages them to work even harder because of the fact that you know that you've been entrusting and empowering as you went along. Now, fast forward, the system loss level gradually went down to 65, from 65 down to 50, 40, 30, 20. Today, it's about hovering around 10, 11, 12%. That's world class. Okay, the real numbers, if you were to talk about the optimal, would be Singapore or Tokyo. They're 5 or 6%. They are not, we will not be comparative at all with that. But we are there. We're better than Hong Kong, New York, London, insofar system loss. Our collection efficiency is at 99, 98%. Again, something that's a far cry from maybe the 60% collection efficiency that we managed to have at that point. And I would always give credit to the individual territory teams who made that possible. And I think this is really where you were letting them be the masters of their own territories. And in turn, they all produced to the optimum. So that's the transformation story.
I think, sir, I remember one of the things attributed to you was the engagement with the barangay. You were able to bring that business from something that's really high up to involve them, right? You made them part of this.
Well, I think we know that if you were to go to the low-income communities, and again, I attribute this feeling to the time that I was in Malabon. When, my first job in Malabon and I was growing up was to bring water from the ground floor to the second floor bathroom because water supply was so poor. And, that brought things face to face with me as to what are the problems of the rest of the community, particularly when you know that only 24% of the population had 24/7 water supply. So to me, I know that we would have bad system losses. We would have people that might be stealing water from you because they were not afforded a legal connection. And guess what? This would largely be the people in poor communities. So that meant that we had to be able to address the problems of the poor. And fortunately, I got the support of Fernando to be able to see to it that we will have a program of 100% water distribution system in all poor communities, and to give everybody the same water quality and the same water pressure, whether you're in Forbes Park or the poorest community anywhere in our area. That was, I think, the vision that we had put in place. And I think, again, you could really see how committed people were, particularly those guys who are in charge of that territory, knowing that that is such a noble objective that they'll be able to get. And I think that is what we have managed to achieve, that we had managed to service millions of poor people, with this privatization effort. So it was a transformation, not just of the people who are in the former MWSS to become Manila Water employees, and at the same time to the population, where you made it possible for even poor communities to have water in their taps, to be able to take a shower in their own houses.
So, sir, that was the stint that made you Management Man of the Year, that MWC stint, the CEO. However, I also, look back, I probably would have seen you about to hang up your gloves, being Management Man of the Year, and then, at that particular age, you were like 60 or 61. All of a sudden, big surprise, you were appointed President and CEO of Ali. Can you share us that story? I don't think a lot of people knew, how this really progressed. Weren't you thinking about retirement at that time, or what happened?
Well, of course, I was already at that mode. But when Jaime and Fernando invite you for lunch, that does not happen very often, right?
Either you did something wrong or you did
Yeah,
something so right.
I thought this was going to be my goodbye lunch because precisely I was 61 years old. And then they told me about what they would like to happen in the case of Ayala Land. And who are you to be able to say no to what these two gentlemen are saying? And they basically came around with two objectives. One was to be able to put the organization together, and then to be able to make sure, the second one was to be able to make sure that we prepare Ayala Land for the next round of the real estate boom. Remember, at that point in time, this was 2009. This was the year after the global financial crisis. Okay, and maybe to my mind, that's where in all of my talks now, I like all of this crisis that always precedes the movements that I happen to make. In Manila Water, that was 1997 Asian financial crisis. This time, 2008, this is the global financial crisis. Today you have COVID, no? But at that point in time, that was the challenge. And so maybe you remember the first MANCO meeting that we had in Ayala Land. And that is, of course, I was just getting immersed with all of the problems. And I remember all of the things that everybody was pitching to me. But eventually, after we had managed to settle down, that's when I figured yung anong sagot doon sa global financial crisis, getting the company together, and then getting Ayala Land ready for the next bounce. And I said, this was the famous 5-10-15 plan that would enable us to be able to break out of our current trajectory and move it significantly higher to double and triple our business volume and net income levels. And in one swoop, the whole company got together, synergy was established, silos were demolished, and everything went like clockwork, such that at the end of the period, we just did not double, we tripled whatever was the targets that we have set for ourselves. I still remember, Rex, that situation that you approached me with. At that point, we were doing the princely sum of 500 million pesos a month That was the amount of sales that we were generating. And here you come, you're a pretty brave soul coming to me and saying, let's front load all of our expenses, our cost to sales ratio, and let's spend it early enough so that we'll be able to make sure that we'll be alive by the end of the year. And it was again an act of faith. And I said, oh sige, after that discussion, kahit na that's not going to be completely according to the month-to-month budget, oh sige, let's give it a try. And the rest is history. I mean, instead of just doing 500 million a month, by the end of the year, we were tracking 1.5 billion a month at that point in time. And of course, the rest is history. The next year, it was 3 billion a month. Today, they're doing practically 10 billion a month. I mean, that's the organization today that is so amazing that they have managed to do all of that. So I think it just tells you, okay, you set the high goals there. I did not go very far from my formula. Set the high goals. Maybe in some cases, they may sound a little bit impossible, but in reality, you will be surprised at how our people will overachieve even beyond these high goals that they've set for themselves.
I think, sir, I put a lot on the line, if you remember at that time, because the challenge was really high growth. So I said, let's spend the money. Then if we don't get the sales, then cut my budget for the rest of the year. But if I get to deliver, I can get to spend more, di ba? So we were just brave to put things on the table.
It's a ratio. So therefore, all you need to do is to increase the total sales and then you'll be able to spend more. But I think it requires a lot of gutsy decisions like that you had proposed to us that, okay, we'll just have to give this thing a try. And we know that was critical. Remember, my overall mandate was to prepare Ayala Land for the next bounce. And between you and me, I said, that bounce starts today. So it wasn't a case where I did not tell you that was my mandate. I just told you I wanted the company to move faster, because if I started saying it that way, people might walk out on me. But I think we all knew that, and we had succeeded in so far as that gut feeling is concerned.
No, sir, let me dig a little deeper into that, because if you're going to look at it in context, no, like for the people who are there, or even the naysayers who are all around us, Tony Aquino was already 61 years old. I mean, he was supposed to be retired, right? So the idea was, maybe this old gentleman can just hop in, put a little order, nurture the company to, let's say, just survive, and then make it ready for the next steward. Everyone was surprised because you got in at that age asking for a growth rate that we never imagined. I mean, you were like hammering rates that were not even in the books for so many years, and then you're extracting that out of everyone. Sir, I think that's your formula. You always say it. But is there a background to that? How you're able to extract? This is one thing you did. You made us believe we can do it while we don't even believe it ourselves. But you made us believe that we can. I think that was one big thing that happened at that time.
Well, I think maybe when I started looking back at my childhood years, and I was telling you that I even had goals for myself as to what my grades were going to be, what my quality point index would be in school. It gives you an idea that I like to set targets for myself. And I always like to have those challenging goals for myself. And I think that was a very important element. The second one is that I was a true believer in how, the base of the market and how eventually the whole economy is so large as far as the country is concerned. Having known maybe what the rest of the Philippines was, and I was referring here to the fact that it is not just Makati, Alabang, and Bonifacio that we were focusing on. Remember, we said we will expand the market by going all over the country, establishing a Makati in every city, every region in the country. And that's really helped out insofar as from our being Makati or BGC-centric and Nubali-centric to all over the country. That helped out in terms of how we will get this trajectory. It also helped out when we're a believer about the base of the pyramid, that it was not just really going to be Ayala Land Premier, because as of today, you know that, hey, Alveo, Abida, they're just about as big as what you had used to have in Ayala Land Premier. And that also managed to have maybe just making use of exactly the same model that made Makati successful, the integrated mixed-use development, by seeing to it that you create subsets of Makati in Cebu, in Davao, where you would have a mix of here's the hotel, here's the residential, here's the mall, here's the office building. And that formula was established by Colonel McMicking. And all you needed to do was to just copy it. And that is really the secret formula of Ayala, that you'd be able to come around with these nice communities that becomes the center of gravity of each of these regions. And I think that was really just where I was coming from. I probably had figured that, we are still too understated relative to our market penetration. We have not reached out to the whole market segment. And it helped that I was out there pounding the streets when I was with IBM, and I knew all of these places all over Metro Manila, that I knew there's a market that you have in those places. So those things helped out a lot.
I think, sir, Bobby has taken it to the next level, no, when you think about decentralization. But giving credit where credit is due, I guess I was skeptical. How can I create a sales team for Cebu? How can I create another sales team for Mindanao? Just doing that for Metro Manila was tough already. But your marching orders were, we have to have an alley in the Bismin region separate from the alley in Makati, which was like decentralizing it the whole time, relinquishing control and letting people run with the big targets.
Yeah, and I think that worked so well. And I think it was also a case where we were literally parachuting people into Cebu so that you will precisely have an Ayala Land Premier product, an Abdeo product, an Avida product. That would not have been possible if we were to use probably the old structure that we used to have at that level, at that point. So I think that's, again, to the credit of the teams, that they managed to embrace each other. The synergy was created. They knew that they had common goals. I really did not mind if two sets of organizations will claim credit for the sales volume. Let it be the sales volume, let it be the Cebu people. It's okay by me, so long as it's our business and not competition. So to me, I think that it's just creating that level of shared objectives that has to be accepted by the whole team.
You know what, sir? That was big, that you mentioned it. I remember, I've been selling the idea of double counting sales for the longest time. Because people don't want to act because they are not going to get the credit. So I just said, let's do double credits, and you allowed it.
Okay lang yan.
Friends, that was a solid first half. We got a lot from that. Would you agree? We got a lot. Certainly, many of us, entrepreneurs, corporate warriors, even parents, would get a lot from what Tony has shared. But that's just the first half. That's just the first half. I'd want you to note that the second video will discuss Tony Aquino's competitiveness, Tony Aquino's, life as a family man, and how this has contributed to his leadership. And more importantly, he's going to be summarizing all that. He's going to be advising you directly, much as he had advised me and Bobby. So please, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment whatever you've learned from this video. And I sure would see you in the next video that we're going to be posting after this. Until then, mabuhay, blessings always.